Disclaimer, this video is educational and informative in nature. Do not contact anyone shown in this video. Also, this video is discussing steroids. Do not use steroids. This is entirely for educational and entertainment purposes only. The first cycle, it's the holy pilgrimage to using steroids as some kind of guy that's in the fitness, or maybe not. We've covered a lot of people who aren't barely in fitness. I mean, just like scraping the edges of fitness and decide to blast their absolute socks off with tons of gear, tons and tons of gear. And today I figure we'll review somebody who kind of went a little bit viral lately with some of his videos. And I figure it's worth talking about because one, it gets him exposure, but two, we get to talk more about steroids. And that seems to be something y'all enjoy. A first cycle is critically important. And I think that if you are going to use the Sazul, you need to use it appropriately, correctly to maximize your results, because at the end of the day, you do have a finite amount of exposure that you can really give yourself before things start going down the shitter faster than you've ever imagined. Some people treat their first cycle like they're Sukuna fighting Maharaga and they're just pulling every card out of the book to win. And that's just the wrong way to go about it, because you end up destroying half of Japan. What really should be done is much different. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about. Now, again, I don't support steroid usage in a lot of cases. I say this fundamentally in every video. For most people, I think you want to look more aesthetic, and you probably don't need anything to do that. Ultimately, you just need a better diet, lifestyle, training regime, whatever the case might be. You just want to look leaner. You probably want to look better.
You can always be thinner. Look better.
And I may sound like American Psycho here, but I do tend to agree that most people could always be leaner. They could always look better.
Well, maybe we shouldn't go out to dinner. I don't want to ruin your willpower.
And most of the time, they don't want to blast steroids, lose their hair, age themselves to infinity and beyond, and get tons of acne, ruin skin texture. I mean, they don't want those things. They don't even want to be that big. They just want to look better. So let's anyways talk about this and kind of decipher what this guy has to say. His channel's Try Not to Do Trend, and he has almost 500 subscribers. Kudos to the guy. But he made this video that's titled How to Actually Run Your First Cycle. What I wish I knew.
All right, so this video is going to be how to take your first cycle. Essentially, this is just information I wish I knew before I took my first cycle. And I know there's probably 1,000 videos how to take your first cycle, but I genuinely believe what I have to say is probably the most beneficial, because the people I listened to before I took my first cycle, like Greg Doucette in More Plates, More Dates, especially More Plates, More Dates, he just goes off of clinical studies where it says these people took 200 milligrams of test and got this. So then Derek from More Plates, More Dates thinks, oh, everybody can take 200 milligrams of test and get like this. Like, no, it's different for everybody.
I don't think Derek ever said that. I think if anything, Derek actually has probably more experience than this guy running steroids. The truth be told is you don't need a lot of steroids. I think what a lot of people consider that is not accurate or probably not healthy is the fact that they're trying to look like somebody who has been on steroids for 5-10 years in their first 6 months of lifting. And so they feel like they need to use more because the results that they're garnering aren't accomplished enough. But if you give yourself time, big caveat here, time, right? Expand your time horizons longer than you think they need to be. You will get the results that you want, even using tiny amounts of androgens. The goal here is low and slow, not fast and short, right? You hear about these like 8 weeks and 12-week cycles that people are running, which are just wildly idiotic. I mean, wildly idiotic. And it clearly shows a lack of understanding with pharmacokinetics and dynamics of these steroids that they're selecting. It's just dumb. If you use a low, slow dose, you're going to be wildly more benefited in the long run from both a health perspective and an aesthetics perspective than you would blasting wild amounts of androgens, having these highly volatile serum concentrations of androgens, and then on top of that, oxidizing your skin to hell, looking like shit, and just causing disasters all around.
So my first point is that everybody responds differently. We all know that there's people online that say you need to take X dose for this amount of weeks. Now, to start your cycle, you should probably do 200, 300 milligrams of test. But from there, you need to adjust it. You need to go up or down depending on how you respond. And not everybody is going to respond the same. Don't just listen to someone online that says, oh, for your first cycle, you should run 300 milligrams of test for 14 weeks. A lot of people say that. But in reality, some people can take 300 milligrams of test and they could get their blood drawn and they'll come back with 1200 nanograms per deciliter of testosterone in their body. But then some people can take 300 milligrams of test and they'll come back with 600 nanograms per deciliter testosterone in their body.
Okay, no one's actually taking 300 milligrams of test and actually coming back with 600 nanograms per deciliter in their body. But also on top of that, a lot of the variance you see there is because of the skewed array of underground labs that people are using and the wild inefficiency that those labs have. Many, many, many underground lab products are tested and found to be completely and woefully misdosed or entirely just the wrong steroidal product in general. There's a study done not too long ago, I've covered it before on this channel, but where they seized products at the border and tested them for labeled dose compared to the actual dose concentrations and then drug, obviously. And what they found was the majority, the grand majority, I believe it was 68 or 69%, was not the drug it was saying or wildly underdosed. So most product coming into the United States is ineffective. It is not what you think it is. And so the reason that you get this wild variance is, yes, in part due to genetic variability, but also because product variability is so dispersed in the community. I'll also say this, serum testosterone levels tell you virtually nothing about how you're going to respond. There's this concept called androgen receptor density and KEGG repeats, which are both things that inherently tell your body, they at a genomic level, they express differently than someone to your left or right. And so you could take 300 milligrams of testosterone and have 600 nanograms per deciliter. That would never happen, but like you could have that and you could express wild benefit from that because maybe you have different KEGG repeats or a higher androgen receptor density than the Joe to your left or right who's also taking 300 milligrams. The total concentration is literally, it doesn't matter. It does not matter as much as people place value on it. It is pretty insignificant in the grand scheme of things if we're looking to appear in a certain type of way.
So my suggestion would be to, probably start at 300. But like in the first 2 weeks, you're not really gonna see much, but around like weeks 4, 6, 8, 10, you should be evaluating how much water am I holding? Do I feel okay? Do I look okay? Am I actually getting stronger? Am I actually putting on weight? Am I getting bad, like a skin response? All that stuff. Based off of those, either increase it or lower it. And it's never gonna be the same. People always ask like, oh, what cycle did you run? And I can never just say, oh, I ran 400 milligrams of test, 300 milligrams of deca for 16 weeks. I can't just say that because I literally change the doses every single freaking 2-3 weeks. And if you're not changing the doses, then you're not running your cycle optimally.
I mean, he's right? You titrate for effect, and in the world of bodybuilding, dependent on your timeline, you may need to titrate up for effect. But if you're not a bodybuilder and you're just trying to run a first cycle, I don't think that's a principle that really tends to apply to you because at the end of the day, you just need more time. 2 weeks is not enough time for a dose titration to even result in an adequate effect. First of all, if you're using an enanthate ester, or who knows, maybe he's using equipoise and you have an undecanoate ester, it's going to take 4, 5, 6 weeks to actually get to see the serum concentrations that you need from that added dose. So you're just sort of scaling as you go and really not getting the effect measured from the previous dose titration, which completely makes this whole thing invalid because what happens is you get this runaway train of dose titrations because you think, wow, I'm not responding the way I need to after that last dose titration. I need more. And in reality, you probably could have just kept the same dose for a longer period of time, trained your ass off and ate right, and gotten the same adequate result. Overall, exposing yourself to less androgens, which means less side effects, which means less metabolic burden, which means overall better aesthetics and appearance at the end of the day.
Like when you actually run cycles, you'll see that like, oh, I'm way too watery. I'm going to lower the test next injection. And you just lower the test and you get less watery. So you need to make changes to your cycle. It's not just going to be the same thing the whole time throughout.
So if you change doses on a week-to-week basis or a bi-weekly basis and you notice that you get more watery, but the dose hadn't even taken full effect yet, how do you know that was implicating itself as the reason for the water retention? Because now what you get is somebody who's every 2 weeks changing the dose and now every week is changing the dose because they got an effect they don't like. And so every other week they're getting a different response. They're changing things. They're trying to figure out what's going on.
Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap.
They start moving around doses all day long, and the volatility that causes
causes within blood serum concentrations leads to massive side effects and acne development, hair loss, sexual dysfunction, you name it. Again, to circumvent having to even need to modify doses up and down continuously 24/7, stick at the same dose for a whole year, 250 milligrams, 300 milligrams, and you will be totally fine, totally fine. For educational purposes only, don't do this at home actually, but you understand what I'm saying.
Do not use steroid.
All right, so now getting to my second point. My second point is the duration of the cycle. Some people come to me and they're like, hey, I want to get jacked. What can I run for 8 weeks? And I'm like, dude, 8 weeks, nothing. Don't run anything for 8 weeks, especially if you're like not running a TRT dose. You're just going to destroy your levels. So I say if you're running your first cycle, the minimum, absolute lowest amount of time that you should run that cycle would be like 14 weeks. Maximum of like 18 or even 20, depending on how you're doing.
I think these arbitrary timelines are also stupid because you don't understand why you have those timelines. Why does someone get off after 14, 16, or 18 weeks? The reason would be because there's some sort of signal that tells them, hey, I'm unhealthy now. Most of the time, people don't actually have that signal. They just get off because that's what the forum said. That's what their coach said. That's what somebody said. But if you actually do the due diligence and pull lab work, we talk about this a lot. Get imaging to your organs, right? Like you test this stuff and very clearly get blood work very regularly, every 8 or so weeks when you're on steroids. By the way, use Anabolic Insights down below in the description. Use the link below. Code Coach Colton will get you a discount. The labs are fire. Okay. They're the cheapest out of any third-party provider. You don't need a doctor. It is one of the best ways to get labs done. Truly in America, this is by far the most elite access to abs that you'll ever have. Abs labs that you'll ever have. But anyways, you don't understand that, for instance, I'm running a cycle and I'm 12 weeks deep and I'm on 300 milligrams of testosterone and I go pull my lab work and everything is generally fine. Then for instance, why stop? What is the indication to stop? What is my blood pressure too wildly variant? Is my heart rate accelerated to a wildly uncomfortable degree? You know, am I unhealthy? And if you aren't, then why stop? You're just shutting the gains down and ultimately creating that volatility within blood serum concentrations once again because of some indiscriminate factor that you feel like you should come off.
Fairy dust.
Or the timeline or the dogmatic approach is we're going to come off after 16 weeks. That's the most dumb thing you could ever imagine. A lot of what happens between pro bodybuilders and the average gym Reuters is that pro bodybuilders don't often actually come off. Truth be told, they will stay on for years at a time. And that's a lot of the reason as well why people don't believe them when they talk about doses, is because when they're using those doses, they're probably on them for a lot longer than you are. And so you don't have the same antiquated effect. So it's like, oh, I need to use more. That's the only obvious solution. What if it was actually that they're using a lower dose than you for a longer period of time? They're checking their health and they're taking action to improve their health and continuously monitor it with a team of professionals, hopefully. And they find that they don't need to come off with these dogmatic approaches of like a 12-week cycle. Food for thought, or steroids for thought. I don't know.
Do not use steroid.
My next point is training. So many people hop on steroids and they don't think that they can like chill out a little more in the gym. They're like, oh, I don't have to train as hard, or I don't have to take it as seriously, or I don't have to follow a workout plan. Bro, even me, like literally like my last cycle before this, for some reason I was hitting chest like 3 times a week because I thought that would grow my chest. No, your chest grows when it recovers, not when you're active. I just farted so bad. Oh my gosh.
All right, that's definitely shows what kind of person we're watching right now. No, really, I think he's right. I talk about this a lot too, but you widen your margin of error significantly when you're on steroids. And so if you start taking these things and you find that you're getting results, even when you don't sleep appropriately, even when you eat a little bit off, even when you train like an asshat, you're still going to get results. And so it makes you think, you get this confirmation bias that what I'm doing is working. I found the method, whatever it might be, but really your method's probably shit. And you've just kind of glossed over the fact that, you know, I'm using steroids and that's really enhancing my results. And also a point worth stating, steroids independently cause hypertrophy, independently, separate as a mechanism from mechanical tension in and of itself. And so you can take steroids and get results even without working out. You shouldn't do this, but you can. And the thought process can soon become, well, I'm growing and I'm training 3 times a week. Like this is obviously going to work better than anything else. Like this is the method. And it may be, but probably not for you, at least. It is the drugs that are covering over, that are glossing over the errors in your regime and causing you to believe this kind of misconstrued idea.
My next point is nutrition. There's like two sides to this. People on cycle, they're gonna eat less food because they want to get lean, they want to lean down and get bigger because they're on steroids. They think they can recomp super easily. Like, yeah, you can, but that's not actually maximizing your first cycle. And there's the other spectrum of people think that being on cycle is an excuse to just eat the entire fridge and pantry. They think like, oh dude, I'm bulking, I'm eating whatever. And it's like, dude, first of all, your digestion is your body's not even using these nutrients. So for the diet for your first cycle, you actually need to be locked into your diet as well. People always have the excuse, just like in training, they're like, oh, I'm on steroids, I don't really need to watch what I eat. Or even better yet, some people, when they're on cycle, they'll be really locked in on what they eat, tracking everything, and then they're off cycle, and then they just like forget about it. It's like, yeah, that's a great way to just lose all your fucking progress.
Yeah, no doubt. You definitely want to keep your nutrition in lock at basically all points during the year, especially because when you're using steroids, you have a much higher propensity to develop lipid-oriented issues. And so if you're eating like shit, you're going to literally internally be like shit, okay? Key words there.
Eat shit. Eat shit. Definitely eat shit.
So understanding that the further off you go from the diet, especially while on cycle, likely the less healthy you'll become. But also this happens a lot where people are really motivated on cycle. Steroids are dopaminergic. They feel goal oriented, and then they get off and, you know, they're on some kind of TRT dose and they lose that intrinsic motivation and suddenly now stop eating correctly. You're going to sacrifice a lot of what you put in terms of the work. You don't need to be as hardcore to maintain the results. That's for sure. But you do lose a lot of the movement that you had on cycle, and that can be pretty devastating to some people. I'll also say though, once you get off of cycle, you still have androgens in your system, and so depending on how long somebody is off and bridging with TRT or whatever, you're probably not even off, right? So understanding that the motivation being gone is basically an internalized thing, not an externalized thing or a physiological thing or even a neurochemical thing.
For your first cycle, what you're actually gonna run. Shocker, just run tests, right? Like that's pretty obvious. Like I said before, you're probably gonna start at 300 milligrams and adjust it up or down from there. Maybe you could start at 400. You could kind of gauge your response by how you were through puberty. You know, did you get like gyno symptoms during puberty? Did you like put on a lot of water? I don't know. Sometimes you can tell, sometimes you can't.
Yeah, I don't think you can use puberty to determine your cycle doses, okay? It's just wildly... You have different aromatase activity during different periods of your life cycle, but also you probably have a wildly different body composition in puberty than you do in maturation. So gauging off your aromatase activity when you're in puberty is just, it's flawed. It's wildly flawed. The reality is, again, start the lowest possible effective dose and assess, do blood work. Get an estradiol test, specifically an ultrasensitive liquid chromatography mass spectrometry test for estrogen or estradiol E2, and assess how much does X dose of testosterone exert aromatase action and create an elevated estrogen for me. Am I at 40 picograms per milliliter at 250 milligrams, or am I at 60? That number is very important, and it can tell you what tolerable dose that you need or should have before things go wildly wrong. I even think 400 milligrams of testosterone to start is a wildly bad idea, maybe even 300. Because at the end of the day, that's enough to cause gyno. That is far and away enough to cause gyno, especially if you're not already quite lean, because aromatase activity happens in adipose tissue most significantly.
One way that I find super easy to determine your steroid genetic response, this isn't a joke, just take D-ball. Now the thing with D-ball is you'll take it and within days, you'll instantly know, do I react poorly to super watery compounds?
This is literally the worst advice I've ever heard. So don't take D-ball. It's just an archaic compound. Throw it away. It's the stupidest thing you could probably do. You're going to convert into methyl estradiol. It's so much harder to manage. You don't understand how incalculatable that actually can be in somebody. And it's not as simple as taking a selective estrogen receptor modulator or an aromatase inhibitor to manage this. D-ball is a woefully bad decision to take. Not only that, but it's hepatotoxic due to its 17 alkylation, and it's going to cause issues with hepatic function. Again, let's just make it nice and simple. Let's just slap 200 milligrams in the situation and assess after 12 weeks. If dose titration is justified, if the results are not actually happening at a quantifiable and statistically significant rate, then we can titrate the dose. But here's something really important to understand. A lot of bros out there think that they're going to be gaining over a pound a week of muscle mass, and that's hysterical. The most genetically elite bodybuilder, let's take Nick Walker. If you did the last 10 years of muscle gain, it's going to be like 12 now. But we did this on a podcast podcast I was on. And basically, if you do the math, he gained on average about a pound per month of muscle mass. A pound per month of muscle mass is what he gained. Now, that is someone who is wildly, has some of the best genetic proclivity to build muscle on steroids that there is. So if you think you're going to build a pound a month using steroids, you're probably wrong, because he's the best. You're maybe looking at half a pound. So when these guys are gaining a pound a week, you're gaining fat, brother. You're getting fat. That's all it is. That, or you're putting on a shit ton of water retention. You don't need to be gaining astronomical amounts of weight. If you're getting stronger in the gym, if your body composition is either improving or maintaining, that is all that matters. Over time, you will express muscle growth. Just understand that even the best in the game are only gaining about a pound a month.
So let's say you take D-ball and you put on so much water weight, your blood pressure's through the roof, your calves are getting sore in the incline treadmill, all this stuff. Well, guess what? Your body's kind of going to react like that on test as well.
Your body is not going to react like that on test, by the way. That's again, a woefully misaligned statement.
Leading to my next point, you should probably have an AI on hand. You're going to want to use Aromacin, not Arimidex. But you should only be popping these AIs if you're super watery, you got puffy or zesty nipples, or you got like bad energy, bad sex drive, stuff like that. That's when you should throw in the AI.
No, you shouldn't throw an AI in whenever you feel those symptoms. Hear me out here. First of all, yes, you should have an aromatase inhibitor, which is going to inhibit aromatase action. So the enzyme that actually cleaves up testosterone and turns it into estrogen, or estradiol, this thing that we're talking about, which binds to the estrogen receptor and causes a estrogenic related genomic effect. You shouldn't, however, just implicate that, put it in whenever you're getting any kind of symptom. Wildly bad idea, okay? A assay, like an ultra sensitive assay for estradiol, is $20 to $40 depending on where you go. You could get that pulled if you're having symptoms the next day. You could get that pulled the next day, get it back 2 to 3 days later, and determine what the best move is. Because so often I find that people actually are within physiological range of estradiol, and the symptoms were sort of this placebo effect that they were creating in their head, because guys like this say,
hey, you're experiencing estrogenic symptoms with water retention. You're experiencing estrogenic symptoms when you have some kind of emotionality change.
When in fact, it may be something else entirely, i.e. the androgens themselves, which do stimulate breast tissue growth. IGF-1 independently stimulates breast tissue growth. Prolactin stimulates breast tissue growth. And if you're taking things like testosterone and then you're throwing in other amounts of drugs, for instance, D-ball, which is activating methyl estradiol, you are going to fuck yourself up, okay? Yeah, just very simple. Use testosterone, check your estradiol. When you titrate the dose, check your estradiol again. Make sure it's within range or acceptable for you and you're not expressing any symptomology. After a while, you create this sort of passport, this biological passport where you understand if I put X dose in, I'm usually going to result with X estradiol or X prolactin or X progesterone, all that good stuff. And that's going to be more of a determining factor of whether you should use an AI or not. Because far too often people use an AI aggressively. They slam their estradiol down into the single digits, which is just wildly bad for your neurology as well as skin health and cause detriments, right? You probably don't need it. You're probably just using too high of a dose of something or the wrong things and implicating that into breast tissue development.
And then, like I said, to know how you're going to respond, you could take D-ball or test to see how you respond. How prone to bloating are you? Because that's like the main thing when it comes to tests is how do you handle the estrogenic side effects? Because let's be honest, the estrogenic side effects are more common than the DHT side effects of test. Not a lot of people are running their first test cycle and losing all their hair. What normally happens is people run their first test cycle and they get all greasy everywhere, puffy face, all these estrogenic side effects. So you're just going to run tests for your first cycle. And if you want to know how you're going to respond, take D-ball and see how you respond to a watery substance like that.
Okay, so to avoid all those things that he just said, because he said that that's just a commonality, it's just a thing you're gonna have to accept while on testosterone, take the lowest possible effective dose, test your estradiol, see where it's at. If you need to titrate the dose after a long ass time, it could be 20 weeks, it could be 30 weeks, it could be 40 weeks. If you titrate your dose, check your estradiol. After about 4 to 5 weeks, you'll know for sure. So check it then and determine, hey, is my estrogen getting too high? And then before those symptoms, you have the cascade of different symptoms, you can actually put stuff in place. You can put frameworks in place that stop you from ever having to deal with those symptoms in the first place. Okay, wildly beneficial. When you start taking things like D-ball, it's not gauging your response to certain things. It's gauging your response to D-ball, which is usually very poor. And so the other thing too is we don't know as concisely the end fates of D-ball as we do testosterone. So if you want to stop hair loss, it's much harder to do on D-ball. If you want to stop bloating, it's much harder to do on D-ball. It's usually just inherent to D-ball. But the point is, because this is like the least advantageous way to gauge your response. The way you should be doing it is objectively through actually measuring the laboratory markers and getting ultrasensitive assays done so you determine exactly what needs to happen.
I do truly believe this is like the best first cycle advice. I'm sure there's some things I missed, but of the things I covered, I believe that this is very good information. And if someone drilled this into my brain before I started like cycling, this would have been, okay, honestly, I wouldn't have listened to them. I just would have ran the steroids anyways. But, you know, at least knowing this, it would have been helpful.
Yeah, I think he said something very valuable there. He wouldn't have listened anyways if someone would have told him to do the right thing, which is probably why we're in this situation right now. But it is what it is. I think, honestly, if you follow this advice, you'll end up in this really big shit can where you're trying to guess what's going on. You can't figure it out. So you keep changing things. You keep adding other pharmaceuticals and you run yourself through the muck faster than you'd ever know it. Instead, like I said, run low and slow. If you have to do steroids, if you're absolutely determined and you're going to do them no matter what, 200 milligrams works outstanding. And people who say it doesn't just haven't done it long enough or even learned the basic principles of bodybuilding or fitness in general. The big thing here, and where I'm coming from my perspective, is I won a natural pro card in bodybuilding before I ever took steroids. And this is like fundamental for people to understand because most of these guys talking just jumped on steroids. They didn't even have a full year of training under their belt before they went on steroids. I was in the gym since I was 14 years old. My childhood is very woefully pathetic, all right? It's one of the most, what I contribute to my success here on this channel. Because it was so traumatizing and bad, I would just stay in the weight room all day long, all night long, and train my ass off from like 14 all the way up to when I competed, which was, I just turned 20 when I actually competed in the natural bodybuilding division of the PNBA and won my pro card. I did that all with fundamental knowledge, implication of that knowledge, and action. Then I used steroids because I already knew at that point what worked very well for me, what was actually proving itself as a natural individual, and then adding an anabolic stimulus was something that just added to what was already going on. And then the growth was exponential. But oftentimes you get people who haven't even trained very long at all. They start 200 milligrams of test and then 6 weeks later, they're like, this shit isn't working. Like I haven't gone to fucking 50 pounds heavier yet. And it's like, no, you'll never do that because the best in the world is probably only gaining about a pound a month. I don't know. Anyways, that was this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully you don't blast steroids. All right. This is all educational.
Do not use steroids.
But if you do, you maybe have some insight now on how to do it a little bit safer.
What if I told you one of the most polarizing individuals within fitness influencer history wasn't known for their PRs or lifts or anything substantial, but for the trolls that they fuel? Brad Castleberry, an athlete, a weightlifter, and a controversy magnet. Let's unpack a story today that's a little bit more dramatic than even his Instagram lifts. From jaw-dropping strengths and a physique to back it up, to accusations of fake weights, Brad Castleberry has been through a lot. But who is he really, and why has he become such a divisive figure within the fitness community, or had become a divisive figure? I think everyone's well established that by now. Before the fame and for the drama and influencer stuff, Brad was just Brad, a kid interested in weightlifting. Brad was always an athletic child growing up and had aspirations to be a professional anything player. He was just an athlete at heart. In fact, he started lifting weights at the age of 15, but this was for the purpose of football. Born in 1985, Brad was a kid in the good old days where kids had a different kind of childhood. Sometimes, a really good one, and other times maybe not so much, but I think it was all for the better. At first, Castleberry exercised in his friend's garage where he spent a lot of time trying different exercises and routines to see what worked best. Maybe something we've all kind of done. According to Brad, all he had was a small bench, a curl bar, and a pair of dumbbells, so they had to improvise quite a bit. But from everything we know, at that time, Brad could have just been lifting some foam weights to get his physique. Anyways, he said at 15, his mom actually got him a gym membership, and from there he couldn't turn back, which was a clear point of change within his use, because he now had a bunch of equipment and different ways to use it. He could train different muscle groups and have a good time. I think we all remember our first day stepping into a real gym. A little bit nerve-wracking, a little bit exciting, a bit of amazement, but for Brad it was likely a fear of being unable to use his fake weights.
All right, I'm serious. I gotta stop trolling him so hard. But seriously, I think we all remember that first day at the gym. The smell, the feel, when you grab the weights, you're worried that everyone else is looking at you, but it's something that is enticing. You learn to love it, you learn to feel for it, and it then becomes a very permanent fixture in your life. At the age of 19, Brad stepped on stage for the first time. After the competition, Castleberry said that he fell in love with the rush of competing. No doubt, seeing Brad here, you can tell his genetics were some of the best, but most people believed that, quite frankly, he was abusing juice at the highest level. Now, as to what he has been using, I don't actually know. He hasn't specifically came out to say what he's been using. He has been clearly a closeted user for some years now. He's in fact claimed natty since his origin, taking a page out of Mike O'Hearn's book. But I'll touch on some suspicions I got later about this situation. It wasn't long after Brad started to pile up great results in different local and regional shows that he decided to step up further by focusing his attention on becoming a pro competitor. He won a show called Muscle Mania, which was the so-called natural show. Clearly, I don't think this was the case, but Brad won anyways, establishing himself as a pro natural bodybuilder, a status him and I oddly share somehow. But to give you an idea of what we're talking about here, back then, this competition looked exactly like this. While local NPC stages look significantly less impressive. Funnily enough, though, he also competed during the same time, like that same year, in the NPC. So I don't believe that what he had was a natural physique at the time he won the Muscle Mania show. And just to clarify, NPC in the bodybuilding stands for National Physique Committee, where a federation where using steroids isn't frowned upon, and there is no drug testing whatsoever. But this isn't to take away from Brad. I will be the first to admit that his physique is insane at this age. It's just a bit sus when you're lying about how you got this physique at, again, such a young age, 19 years old, yet it's so very clear to the common person's eye that something is not normal here. But after this, even with the great success that Brad had, he quit bodybuilding. A very interesting decision. See, over the course of several months after winning his pro card, he competed in a couple more shows. Nothing notable happened, but shortly after, he just lost his desire to compete, as he said. According to Brad, the endless hours of preparation and competing, the stress started to build up and take its toll on his life. In other words, what I'm interpreting here is that he started to realize people were developing a bit of suspicion about his natural status as he was going from show to show, absolutely dominating, and he knew he couldn't keep it up for very long. He certainly didn't want to curate any more doubt by competing in the National Physique Committee or the NPC, so he decided to switch to football. He participated in 2 major league football games where he actually excelled with his power and performance really at full display. Bradley's strength and vertical leap and overall athleticism were actually seriously impressive during his football career. He's clearly athletic, more than most men could ever dream of being, again pointing at the fact that he has superior genetics to most people. It was at this time that he mentioned he had really learned a lot about training, and he learned one thing about that training was really he enjoyed functional training, being able to train in a capacity that's bodybuilding, but also supporting flexibility and speed, which is now the training style that he tries to coach people towards. And to be honest, I think that's great. Like or hate Brad for his misleading behaviors, I do sense that he is trying to help people here to some degree or another. At least that's what I tend to think about people, unless they're very blatantly scamming. So once again, he quit bodybuilding, he shortly quit football. It took not too long at all after those 2 debuts that he just decided it was enough for him, that he started to take up more of a powerlifting style of training, or at least this is what he told his audience. He would begin to publish his strength records and feats all over the internet. As well, what was pretty undeniable is that he had an exceptional physique for his age and his current status. This clearly attracted people from all over the world in droves. His followers and subscribers and generally fame skyrocketed in early 2015. During that time, Brad caused a lot of controversy.
Video and as you can see already, right from the bat, we are jumping right into another Brad Castleberry video. And I actually promised myself after the last 3 videos I made about him, I was going to stop making videos, but this guy is just relentless, guys. He will not stop with the fake weights, and I don't understand why, and I'm tired of him claiming that he's lifting these weights and doing world records.
Now, I'm not going to beat around the dingleberry bush today because Bradley Castleberry is already the biggest meme of the fitness industry. For those of you who are out of the loop or simply unaware, Bradley was exposed about a year ago for performing fake feats of strength to impress people on social media.
Come on, come on, come on, come on. Yeah, come on, up. Up.
Planet Fitness. We're all strong on this planet.
One more, everybody.
As pretty much everyone believed that he was not only using fake weights, but he was also established as a fake natural, someone who was claiming that they never took steroids but was currently using them. And Brad didn't just lift weights, he lifted his social media game. His larger-than-life personality that was wildly boisterous and his incredible lifts that, fake or not, definitely grew in virality, blew up his Instagram, with people like the strongest men in the world not being able to actually lift what Brad was lifting. And yes, this is actually how insane his claims were. He was beating the strongest men in the world at their own competition, yet he wouldn't compete because it wasn't for him. This is the kind of post that he would make very often, and I see it as one of the origins of rage bait here on the internet. Basically, to define rage bait, it's posting something that is going to clearly be divisive, with a very high degree of people reacting negatively to the content you're making, but those comments and reactions stimulate algorithmic conditioning and therefore push your content forward in the algorithm so it gets exposed to more people. But it's not so controversial that not anyone disagrees with you. You have some people who agree and support you, and it worked all too well. With his followers rising so fast, it was a damn record. 8 years ago, he peaked out at 772,000 Instagram followers, and this was just within a few years of posting. However, that peak did seem to slowly decline, as he's only now at about 946,000 followers. A very impressive feat nonetheless, but definitely not the spurt of growth that he had in his early days. And as Brad's fame continuously grew, his lies didn't. They stayed the same.
I think they doubt it instantly like this, like right away. It's the first thing they think. And I go, and at the point I'm at, I stand on it. I'm like, go take whatever you want. You'll never create this off of taking steroids. It takes hard, dedicated work and working out properly. Like I feel like I'm one of a kind, one of one in the industry. I take my shirt off even more now because I'm more confident with my shirt off, and I'm proud. I'm proud because I worked hard for this. And people, I think I want to show people that, look at all these people out there trying to take stuff and they're nothing close to this. I don't want to take, like, this is 22 dedicated years of every day. And there's not many people in this world that have worked out 22 straight years.
With fame comes a great deal of scrutiny, and for Brad, a lot of questions came as he continued to lift more weight. From fake weights to staged lifts to abusive steroids, everything was there.
What's your diet like? Tell him.
Lie, 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 and when you're asked about it, just lie within the lie. And so Bradley Castleberry, you're a freaking liar, full stop. If you've ever heard of Brad Castleberry, you know the controversy of him using fake weights. The guy was bragging for years that he could outbench everyone, and we do in fact have history. About 20 years ago when I was competing in the Muscle Mania and so on, it was this guy, Brad Castleberry, who says he could bench press 585 pounds. And I was thinking, he can't bench press that much. And so I literally challenged him years ago. He may not remember. I eventually became a world champion in the bench press, literally have a world record. Brad Castleberry, on the other hand, who claims he could bench press well over 100 pounds more than me, how many records does he have? And so to me, the proof is in the pudding. If you're so strong, why do you not have any records? Why are there no official records of Brad Castleberry ever having set any records whatsoever? Well, I'll tell you why, because they were fake plates.
The only guy I'd wait in a line for. Watch, he's gonna hold this conversation for at least 10 minutes. Watch, guaranteed. Oh, he's natty. Lifetime natty. He's ready. Well, he's not ready, but he's ready. He's as ready as he will be. Since 2019, it's been a long wait.
Kenny KO Nation, subscribers watching. Are the weights fake? Are the weights fake? The weights aren't fake. Are the fake weights? Are they?
Now, one thing that we can hope for in a good influencer is the ability to be transparent and address controversies well. How is Brad addressing these controversies, or did he address them?
What's new for the life of Brad? A mobile bodybuilder. Look at this.
It's just working hard. I've gained 20 pounds of muscle.
Since the last time I saw you?
It's like 245.
Wait, were you like 245 last time I met you though?
I don't know what I was then. But then COVID hit. Life's
Okay. Back when we talked last, so 2019, or kind of that time frame, 2017 to 2019, were you using fake weights?
No, never lose fake weights.
Never.
Still claiming to have put on 20 pounds of muscle, whilst also still claiming natural after having his weight several years ago. And that in spite of all of his haters, he's still able to continue progressing and improving. And at the end of that all, he points to helping people as the reason he's doing what he's doing, the motive behind it all.
Don't be a bitch in life. Yeah, I mean, don't bring people down. That's what a bitch is. We don't want to associate with those types of people. And these days, what we're dealing with society is a lot of negativity and people like battling each other when they can't even win their own battle of life, and they're projecting their own negativity of how they feel about themselves on others. And it's honestly, I feel bad for those types of people because at the end of the day, that person needs help too. So that's where I'm at in life. I want to help more people out and like.
Do you think I need help?
Everyone needs help, bro. Every person.
I probably do need help.
You probably do. Every person needs help. At the end of the day, you're lying to yourself. You're not. Be better. Work hard. Be kind. Everyone has struggles. But do you want someone to bring you down, or do you want someone to be mean to you? So why would you do that to somebody else? And I just feel like these days, people need that support, and it's a mental health. Like a lot of people are just falling off, not knowing what to do. They can't even get out of their car. They can't go to the gym. They're not even living life. Live in the present. People stress about what people think of them. I don't really care what anyone thinks of me in this building.
Which is so interesting to me because we've seen people like Alex Eubank, Toji, Callie Muscle, Wes Watson, Big Boy. They all address criticism by saying that they're just trying to help people. I'm just here to help people, and that's it. And while maybe in their hearts they truly do believe that, which great, I think that's important, I think it's easy for us to point out the logical flaws in their own fallacy. Now don't get me wrong, I'm sure Brad has helped a ton of people, more people than I probably could have due to his reach. However, whilst doing it, he's hid under this facade the whole time, which is a little bit distasteful. In his house behind closed doors as he's capping in thousands of dollars from the programs he's selling or the coaching packages or the supplements or whatever brand deals he has going on, he's grabbing the 3cc syringe, jamming it into his buttocks and injecting whatever cocktail of anabolic steroids. And I have to hand it to Brad here because his skin looks great. He looks youthful. He still has a full head of hair. He doesn't have a direct moon face, which is something you very clearly see when someone is on cycle. However, I say this whilst having making this video watched some of his content. It does seem that his recent content, he has developed a weird face architecture, yet the older content he didn't. So maybe this is age, or maybe he really has started to have to increase doses to sustain his physique and strength. And by the way, moon face is a clear side effect of steroid abuse. So to speculate on what he's running here just a little bit, I think it's clear that it's some lower dose of testosterone, not extremely high, but moderate. Because as the testosterone doses do increase, so too does estradiol. The aromatase enzyme cleaves up that testosterone and turns it into estrogen. This estrogen can cause a great deal of water retention and definitely exert a phenotype of moon face. You can actually see this in Vigorous Steve's steroid face transformation. He had to get off of steroids due to fatty liver disease, and because of that, his face shockingly reversed in aging. Now, Steve notoriously used high doses of testosterone, insulin, growth hormone, and some IGF-1, so he had much more water retention than the average guy using just a little bit of testosterone.
Quick pitches. We built the first way to take your stock portfolio and follow someone else's. So instead of you making the decisions on your own and stressing out and being like, what do I buy? What do I sell? You can just find an expert, find someone on the platform, and just have them do it for you.
What's the secret to peak health? Going micro with Noom. Micro habits, micro wins, even microdose GLP-1s. Now starting at just $99.
Micro? I can do micro.
With Noom, we all can!
And it's designed to minimize side effects and give me real weight loss? Yes, please.
I'm doing it. I'm going micro.
Heck yeah!
Now starting at just $99. Get started at Noom.com.
So I think Brad's cycle would differ quite a bit, and I honestly believe he doesn't have to use much to obtain the physique that he has, because quite
Imagine this, it's a very Chinese time of your life, and you decide to head on over to the Chinese supermarket, but for some reason, it looks less like a place to buy groceries and more of a retirement home. I'm talking uncles and aunties fully set up between the soy sauce and the instant noodles. Kids doing homework on the floors, shirtless grandpa locked in on their final move of mahjong, and even somebody napping next to the drinks with their bare foot on the freezer. At first glance, you're thinking, nah, this gotta be staged, social experiment. Propaganda? This is just a regular summer in China. People are essentially camping in the supermarkets for the free air conditioning because the heat outside is straight up scorching. Turning on the AC? What a waste. People were so desperate that in Chongqing, residents were filmed sitting in riverbeds and hiding in caves just to cool off. Actual caveman solutions. You know, it got so hot that you went back to prehistoric survival tactics. To make things worse, power grids were getting overloaded. Some areas rationed electricity. That means even if you had air conditioning at home, it didn't mean you could use it freely. At that point, you're scared too because the bill might jump or the electricity might just cut. So when you got 40 degrees outside, unreliable electricity, expensive AC, you remember that your local supermarket exists. In Suining, a city in Sichuan, China, a supermarket owner uploaded a video looking like they discounted every item in the store. The entrance of his store is absolutely packed, not with shoppers, but with hundreds of elderly people, not browsing or buying, just existing. You know, it's giving community center. Some are sitting on stools they brought from home, some are squatting, some are fully posted on the floor, and the crowd even spilled into the lobby and the aisles. People chatted, played games, laughed, argued, and yes, some even complained that the air conditioning wasn't cold enough. The most cursed part? Some seniors didn't even bring chairs, so they took their shoes off and sat on them. Bare feet on the floor, in a supermarket, in 40-degree heat. Customers actually trying to buy groceries had to squeeze past this human wall, dealing with the sweaty foot smell, cigarette smoke, and the hot, humid air. The store owner said that there were 300 to 400 people per day at peak. Staff even noticed patterns. Invasion time was 2 p.m. Mornings were quieter. Afternoons, rev up those fryers, and they'd show up every evening after 7 p.m. for a whole month. Imagine walking in to buy eggs and you get greeted with a mahjong tournament where frozen beef slices are the prize. No, at least they're demo testing the fans. They're ensuring it works properly. You know, this might not even be cold enough. He could scooch over a bit and just climb straight into the freezer. I cannot see a single sight of a shoe or a sock. Reminds me just of home. And here's where it gets awkward because you can't just kick them out. I mean, you can, so the owner wanted them gone. But also, how do you yell at 400 elderly people just trying not to get a heat stroke? That's where your morals get the best of you. He told the reporters the crowds blocked entrances, made the store dirty, and scared away the actual paying customers. Small supermarkets already operate at barely profitable margins. I mean, they are contributing to the supermarket loyalty programs, just not with purchases. Now, culturally, chasing away elderly people, especially during a heat wave, makes you the villain, so the owner just endured it. Another store manager even captioned this video with, "Be my customer, I'll spoil you," basically welcoming them. Other cities weren't spared either. Some people were filmed lying on the bottom shelves after the products. literally using retail infrastructure as cooling furniture. And well, if you can't beat them, join them. Since it's become the meta, even college students entered the chat. At Yantai Nanshan College in Shandong, a student named Zhang posted a video about his dorm not having air conditioning. So, he went to a nearby supermarket to cool off. And guess what? Everyone else had the same idea. By the time he arrived, dozens of students were already there, sitting on the floor between shelves, textbooks out, phones charging, basically turning the supermarket into a bootleg study hall. The aisles were so packed that the shoppers could barely move. Netizens joked that the supermarket had become the university's unofficial library. Online reactions were exactly what you'd expect. Their argument was simple: supermarkets are businesses, not public parks. Basically, shopping was unbearable when every aisle looked like an outdoor street market. But supporters clapped back. They argued that supermarkets already use AC anyways, so people sitting there doesn't really add much cost. A lot of netizens said that if the supermarket was smart, they could just turn the lobby into a tea room and charge a small fee. Now, once supermarkets started getting full in capacity, people realized all air conditioning is free if I'm bold enough. Every cooled indoor space becomes an option. Shopping malls occupied, subway stations claimed, fast food open 24/7. Not ordering, not even pretending to order, just sitting there for hours. At this point, you're just freeloading air. Chatting, playing cards, you know, some even just lie on the benches. Eventually, local officials had to gently convince the seniors to leave so that the restaurant could actually function again. What's the next checkpoint? Let's just go straight into caves while wearing a winter jacket and eating hot pot. Outside, 42 degrees. Inside, 16 degrees. I mean, that's one way around natural weather cycles, I guess. Or you could just get the best of both worlds and go to a water park. Except the water's not cold enough, so you buy a pack of ice to dump into the public pool. And of course, you can't forget the floating mahjong tables. Absolute innovation, adapting to every scenario possible. If you thought camping in frozen food aisles was wild, walk into an IKEA in China and it looks like people live there. Fully horizontal mode, shoes off, under the blanket, entire 5-hour naps. People climb into display beds, doom scroll on sofas, enjoy the air conditioning, and share beds with strangers while snoring. The kids play in the children's area, some do their homework on the showroom desks, and when tired, they just lie down on the beds. The parents just bribe them with the cheap IKEA ice cream. Why go to a theme park when you have furniture? It's like everybody has their own section. There's no way it's sanitary when people are reusing these mattresses and blankets every single day, right? This is what's called adapting to your environment. And then some areas become a matchmaking dating venue, a place you could possibly find your future wife. The uncles and aunties dress up twice a week, chatting over free air and coffee. There was even a chair swinging fight between 3 elderly women over 1 man. This place might be a good contender to local parks, as long as you're into aunties over the age of 60. And here's the kicker, nobody is bothered. Napping in public is normal. On benches, in offices, on subway seats. Sleep is not embarrassing. It's efficient. You'd think IKEA would crack them down immediately. They tried drafting rules banning impolite behavior like sleeping on the displays and taking your shoes off, but it never fully happened. Why? Because enforcing it would be impossible, and more importantly, it would alienate the customers. When IKEA opened its Zhengzhou store, within 1 hour, it attracted 80,000 visitors. Many weren't there to shop, they were just stopping by for a quick nap. The head of IKEA China literally told the reporters that they welcomed these people. They welcomed customers sleeping in the store. At that point, IKEA just stopped fighting and just leaned in. You know why? Because maybe, just maybe, today's napper is tomorrow's sofa buyer. Yeah, so the line between public space and private comfort in China is basically gone. People collectively decided if it's air conditioned, it's home. And honestly, when heat waves keep getting worse, it's inevitable. When it's 45 degrees outside, nobody cares about etiquette. They care about not passing out. So yeah, don't be surprised if your local mall looks like a summer camp. Or you know what's even better? Buying a sofa from IKEA and then bringing it to the supermarket. That way you get the best of both worlds. See, even I'm starting to learn from them. All right, well, I'm starving, so I'm gonna go to the grocery store to get some Chinese food. Or, sorry, I meant food. That's just a glimpse of how Chinese my mind has become.
You are being lied
Disclaimer,
to about
this video is
electrolytes. Really? That's a bold claim.
I think that I've uncovered another supplement industry scam. This one's worth over $40 billion. And for the first time, it's a scam that I hope isn't true. It's a supplement that I take every day. It's a supplement that I never question the science on.
I personally do supplement with an electrolyte supplement.
It's tasty. You shake it up in your shaker. You can add it.
How is this a scam? We're talking sodium, potassium, magnesium. Endurance athletes take it. It's in Gatorade. I mean, it's what the plants crave. It's pretty simple. Now, I can tell you that there's certain products that are complete dog shit with their electrolyte balance profile, and certain non-optimal formulations like no glucose, because electrolytes get absorbed faster through the glucose co-transport blood barrier in the stomach. That's why I'm not a fan of no sugar electrolyte beverages. And we also run on glucose. So, let's see what he has to say here.
Your protein and carbs at the end of a workout, whatever you like.
Correct ratio of electrolyte.
Next, you're going to tell me that fucking trail mix is a scam now, too.
This is extremely important.
And in this video, I'm going to go through the existing literature, the studies, the science, what we have right now, and pose a question. Are the claims of the companies selling this supplement lying to us? And are there hundreds of millions of people wasting money every month? Myself being one of them. So in this video, I pose a single...
Opinions on 5 a.m. gym sessions. I hit one yesterday, and I'll tell you what, it was a great workout. I attacked my day, and then I crashed at 4 p.m. and took a 3-hour nap. So take that with what you will. I love working out earlier and earlier the older that I get. I like a violent start to my day. I like to get it over with. It sets me up. I get the endorphins. I'm pumped. But if I really don't have, I'd say about 8 or 9 hours of sleep with that workout, I am cooked as the day goes on.
Question. Are supplementing electrolytes for hydration the world's biggest supplement scam ever? Let me take you back to where the story began. For this to make sense, let's rewind a year, and I'm in the midst of creating a new business. Now, I train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu quite a lot. I take electrolytes every time I train, and I thought that maybe we could make an electrolyte specifically for Jiu-Jitsu. So here are some of the designs we're going through, and I actually thought that each colored belt could be its own flavor. I know it says blue raspberry here, but you could have black cherry, brown could be cola, purple could be raspberry, you could have blue raspberry for blue belt. And
honestly, I thought this was going to be a dumb idea, but it's pretty smart from a branding perspective.
Maybe a tropical for white belt. Going through loads of different designs. Thought you get a cool little box, something basic. As far as a business where you could get people on a subscription, as long as they're going to train jiu-jitsu, they're going to drink the electrolytes. It takes 10 years to get a black belt. What a subscription business. Thought the boxes looked kind of cool. Now, the next stage I had to do was go into some competitor analysis. For instance, there is a brand that I use that I love. We started looking into some of the biggest players in the game, even Liquid Death, and we get into the science, formulations, everything that's in it. Different electrolytes. Got sodium, potassium, magnesium, their roles. And when we say things like potassium chloride and calcium citrate, I don't really understand this that much. Approved health claims, UK, Australia, all kinds of different branding, things that we could go through. But the problem begins when trying to prove that electrolytes benefit us. And we bring into the phrase someone called Adam McDonald, and we've actually...
How much time did you spend meal prepping and cooking last week? And how much did you spend on takeout when you got bored? That's not necessary to eat healthy, not with Factor. Factor is the best.
I had a deep dive into this, and we kind of hashed this out over...
Who the fuck is this guy?
Podcast that's coming out in the next few weeks.
Hydration is basically just state of water balance, but nowadays, I don't know if it's a first world problem or whatever, but people just seem to overcomplicate it too much. And the biggest problem with hydration, I think, is those electrolyte supplements.
But I asked Adam to put together an article for me, really laying out the science, because I feel that this is a little bit out of my depth. Now, one of the first things that I thought was quite interesting...
the simple advice of eating food and drinking water should cover most people's bases. However, I think there was a psyop at one point to push ludicrous amounts of water drinking, where you're then diluting the sodium in your blood, and you could run into some problems. That's why people talk about structured water, like fruits and vegetables, because those technically hydrate you, because along with water, you're getting the minerals, nutrients, etc.
Before talking to Adam, was that we are talking about sodium chloride, table salt. And if we just use the word sodium, it doesn't represent it properly because table salt is not 100% sodium. You can actually see here it's 40% sodium and 60% chloride. Now, this is where the debate gets interesting.
That's NaCl, sodium chloride.
The average American adult consumes approximately 3.3 grams of sodium per day, which already exceeds the recommendation of 2.3 grams.
See, these recommendations are for twinks. I don't know if I should be following the average American adult because I'm not the average American. I'm a literal behemoth, a freak of nature operating at the top of the food chain. I am the apex predator in all realms, physical and mental. Like, these are for non-lifting, wage cuck, spiritually dead inside NPCs. The average American is a slug. What are we talking about?
And I'll ask Adam if it's okay to share this document. Everything here.
Second of all, sodium becomes a bit more complex when you talk about like individual blood pressure dispositions. Like if you naturally have low blood pressure, having more salt in your diet could help you from a health perspective, especially performance.
He's referenced at the bottom. So when we're looking at athletes, here's the rhetoric. I lose salt in my sweat, therefore I need to replace it immediately or bad things might happen. This has been my belief. For a long time, I've always thought there's salt in my sweat. One of the key markers is that on a hot day, if I come back from training and I'm a bit sweaty, my dog just won't stop licking me. I've always assumed it's the salt that I'm losing and I need to replenish that. And Adam says here that our sweat losses are very different between us. And actually one thing I can...
That is true. Some people are saltier sweaters than others. The actual amount of electrolytes that you lose is dependent on the person. For example, I think I'm a salty sweater. I haven't gotten my sweat lab tested, but I have used electrolyte beverages post-workout, and I feel infinitely better. The one time I believe I went hyponatremic, it's like I ran out of salt. I was doing a long run in the middle of the winter. I did 10 miles. And at mile 8.5, I could have just bonked, like ran out of carbs, not sure what happened. But I was dragging my feet. And like my 9:30 mile pace turned into like a 15-minute mile pace. But I had to finish. And the second I had salt, big chillin' when I got home. But I felt like I was on the brink of death. So I don't know if that was carb or salt or a combination of both.
Tell you from training jiu-jitsu is people sweat in different amounts, but some people also have a certain smell to their sweat. Some people are the ammonia sweaters and their gis in jiu-jitsu turn kind of yellowy orange. It's kind of gross. And as he says here, our sweat rates can vary day to day.
It increases the conductivity in the body, better nerve firing. Oh, 100%. Especially potassium. If you're low on potassium, goodbye to any sort of muscular function.
Weather dependent, but also person to person. So people actually would need to test the amount of liquid that they're losing in training sessions to really understand the implications of dehydration. So here's the bit where it gets interesting. Although widely consumed among sport and exercise enthusiasts via electrolyte supplements, sodium doesn't appear to directly improve exercise performance. So
yo, that's a fucking lie. That is straight up retarded bullshit. Sodium doesn't appear to directly improve exercise performance. If anything, sodium is like the golden key to unlocking a new level of performance. Go try to get a pump or lift weights without salt in your system. Your heart beats thanks to sodium, potassium, and calcium. If they're out of whack, you can develop heart arrhythmias. 100%. I know this. You know this. Smart people know this. Sodium is the baseline. Wait, this is kind of mind-blowing because you have actual veteran lifters like Stan Efferding, the vertical diet. Who remembers that? Sodium is key for lifting, let alone endurance. Now, do people drag it on social media? Yeah.
Even though social media emphasizes that essential minerals must be supplemented with all athletes that sweat, the research is very limited and strongly favors no boost in time to exhaustion, race time, or time trial numbers.
Sodium requirements is more to do with the concentration of sodium in your blood. And that has to do with how much you sweat and how much you drink rather than, oh, I sweat a bit and then just replace it. Because I think electrolytes are eventually going to be the next BCAAs. And what I mean by that is they're hyped, everyone wants them, but they're not really useful. And I don't mean useful as in like you're taking some just random something that doesn't work.
Has this guy ever ran before? Or biked or swam? If you long distance run, you know immediately when you're running into a nutritional brick wall. I feel it in my legs if I'm low on sodium.
They're essential, but so are BCAAs, right? But you get enough of them in your diet, you can add them in, but they don't really do a whole lot.
Then Mike Israetel is someone that I will go to in the industry to see what they've commented on. And
you always show up on time. Why should you wait to get paid? You nail every job. Why not ask for 5-star reviews? You do the early.
See what he says about.
Right? So we know for a fact that a man was designed to plant a seed in a woman. Now, I'm not shunning anybody's lifestyle. If you do that lifestyle, more power to you. I don't care about what you do with your thing. But I do have to highlight that in order for you to sell your soul to Hollywood, in order for you to sell your soul to what we like to call the devil, if you allegedly, in order to sell your soul to the secret societies and the powers that be on the upper echelons, you're going to have to give up your root chakra. You're going to have to spread. You're going to have to go to jail, squat and cough. You're going to have to go to jail, squat and cough in order to make it in the mainstream. This is what lets you know that the male homosexual act is a forbidden act, because why would you have to do that act in order to sell your soul? So whenever you do that act, know that you are participating in selling your soul. Why? Because this is what Saturn requires. Saturn requires your bunghole in order to sell your soul. And where's the seat of your soul? People think the seat of your soul is your third eye chakra. No, the seat of your soul is your root chakra. The root of your soul is in your root chakra, and your body is the tree of life, or the tree of death. It's literally both at once, whatever frequency you decide to focus on. So understand that when you are dealing with these different secret societies, because remember, we here at the Church of the Great Grand Holy Mother of All Divine, we're an open society. Right hand to the Great Grand Holy Mother, left hand to the Great Grand Holy Mother. We are open society here at the Church of the Great Grand Holy Mother of All Divine. And what does an open society mean? An open society means you can come get the magic, you can come get the esoterics, you can come get the metaphysics, you can come and get the occult, you can come and get all of the secrets that the secret societies are keeping from you, from us. For damn near little or nothing or free. You ain't got to sell your root chakra. No, when you come over here, you're gonna have to activate all of your chakras. Activate, not sell. And you can get that damn near for little or nothing. When you come over here, you're gonna have to heal your body, and heal your mind, and heal your spirit, and heal your emotions, and heal your past traumas and pains and gains, right? When you come over here, you're gonna have to what? Do fasting, proper dieting. When you come over here, you're going to have to do self-improvement. When you come over here, you're going to have to rewire your brain to abundance and success. When you come over here, when you come over to the Church of the Great Grand Holy Mother of All Divine, the only thing that's going to be demanded of you are the things that don't got nothing to do with sex. So understand, and here at the Church of the Great Grand Holy Mother of All Divine, we are a polytheistic church. So understand what polytheism is. We just not polygamy and polyandry and polyamory and polygyny and all of these different things. Guess what? We are polytheist, meaning many gods. Okay? So understand, when you come over here, you're going to have to get educated and tap into your sacred feminine energy, whether you're male or female. Men, you're going to have to come in and I'll show you how to tap into your sacred feminine energy. Women, you're going to have to come in and learn how to cultivate your sacred feminine energy when you come to the steps of the Great Grand Holy Mother. This is why so many people are afraid to come to the steps of the Great Grand Holy Mother, because she requires self-sacrifice. Yeah, you're going to make some sacrifices over here, but it ain't going to be your booty hole. It ain't going to be your round brown. It ain't going to be it ain't going to be that. Guess what it's going to be? It's going to be self-sacrifice. Oh, yeah, you're going to have to sacrifice your money. You're going to have to sacrifice your time. You're going to have to sacrifice your energy. You're going to have to sacrifice your focus. You're going to have to sacrifice your friends. You're going to have to sacrifice your family. And when I say sacrifice your friends, sacrifice your family, meaning shun the matrix minds that they have. And just because they're your friends, just because they're your family, don't mean you don't deserve to be a top 1%. That don't mean you don't deserve to be in the 1% because because your family don't want you to be. You feel me? So we over here, you can call us the good Illuminati. We the Illuminati that believe that, hey, everybody everybody is guilty until proven innocent. We don't believe that innocent until proven guilty. You've been arrested for a motherfucking crime against them kids. Guess what? You are guilty until proven innocent. Now prove your innocence, bro. Prove your innocence. Over here, you're gonna have to learn about Saturn and how Saturn controls your life and how Saturn is the god of the Bible. Over here, you're gonna have to learn about the original Grim Reaper, who is the great grand holy mother Santa Muerte. See, when you come over here, you're gonna have to upgrade and learn yourself, know yourself. See, you like that, you know, yeah. You can't bullshit a bullshitter. You can't bullshit a bullshitter. You can't bullshit a bullshitter. All these Taurus moons around me. All this Taurus energy around me, and I'm not even a Taurus. You can't bullshit a bullshitter. No. I'm a cowboy on the steel side, and I want them, dead or alive. Yeah, them PDFs gotta go. Them PDF files gotta get deleted out of the system. You can't have the wrong PDF. You can't have no PDF files clogging your system. You gotta delete all of your unnecessary PDF files, bro. You got PDF files in your phone? We gotta delete those. You gotta delete those. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Stop acting like y'all don't know what I'm talking about. Acting like the world ain't run by PDF files in your phone. The PDF files in your phone. Yeah, shit gotta go. So understand it, man. We about to talk about this shit. But when I be talking about it, bro, I be talking about it from a magical perspective. I be talking about it from a spiritual perspective. That's another thing, man. I got to tell y'all over and over again, and I'm going to tell y'all over and over again until I start seeing it on the internet. Y'all ain't spiritual enough. Y'all ain't spiritual enough. Y'all ain't spiritual enough. You know how I know y'all ain't spiritual enough? Because don't none of y'all got no reverence. Don't none of y'all reverence Mother Nature. Don't none of y'all reverence the sun. Don't none of y'all reverence the sky. Don't none of y'all reverence the moon. Don't none of y'all reverence the water. Don't none of y'all reverence the air you're breathing. Don't none of y'all reverence the insects. Don't none of y'all reverence the trees. Don't none of y'all reverence Mother Nature. Don't none of y'all reverence the great grand holy mother. This is how I know y'all ain't spiritual. Ain't none of y'all magic. Don't none of y'all reverence the magical. I'm going to be the nigga. I'm going to be the, mark my words and mark this video. I'm going to be the guy. And the Church of the Great Grand Holy Mother is going to be the entity that brings magic back to the forefront and it make it as popular as Christianity is today. Mark my words. Mark my words, in the near future, magic is going to be as common as Yahweh, Saturn, Allah, Buddha, Krishna, Jesus, and all of the rest of the masks of the alleged set. Understanding. It ain't going to be offset. It's going to be inset, onset, upset, downset, around the set. There's going to be a whole bunch of sets. Sunset, moonset. It's going to be a whole bunch of sets in this month. Understand me? So understand what's going on when we talking about these subjects. We talking about these subjects not because y'all don't know it. We talking about these subjects because repetition is the parent of learning. Repetition. It took for you as a baby, you didn't learn to just start talking blah, 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 blah. No, you was doing this. And
educational and informative in nature. Do not contact anyone shown in this video. Also, this video is discussing steroids. Do not use steroids. This is entirely for educational and entertainment purposes only.
There comes a time in every young lifter's life where they're proposed a question: to stay natural or to use gear. And it seems like a very clear and concise decision. Use gear, get amazing results, develop a physique that is unbelievable by many, and reap the rewards, whether that's monetary or just reputational. Staying natural is a very long path that you have to sustain for the literally longest amount of possible time to achieve results that people think are quite exceptional. To many young guys, it seems like a very easy choice to make. Use the steroids, get the results, but it's not so simple when put to practice. Because the fact of the matter is, it's not just a very linear path. Using steroids is ambiguous. There's many different compounds, there's many different side effects, and there's many different genetics which play a role into the results that you'll garner from using steroids. The first cycle is a pilgrimage to gains.
Be gentle, this is my first time.
that many take in hopes to enlighten their physique with some kind of exceptional amount of muscle mass. And what you might actually realize very quickly is that the first cycle is pretty underwhelming.
Hims makes hair regrowth simple as popping a daily chew. Through Hims, you can grow thicker, fuller hair in just 3 to 6 months with an orange-flavored chew powered by finasteride and minoxidil.
Oh, don't cry. You'll figure it out.
Today, we're going to be discussing a cycle by another Redditor that I think is pretty insane for a first cycle, and we'll talk about why and some of the side effects that this individual had experienced and some things that you should look out for yourself. I don't actually know if you're going to be taking steroids, but I highly suggest probably not doing it. Let's preface some of this with his stats. He's a 20-year-old in college. He's 5'10", started a cycle at 192 pounds, and is currently 220 pounds with 2 days left in the cycle. He squatted 335 for 3 reps before, and now he can squat 500 for 1 rep. Very, very young age to start steroids and start blasting, but hey, we're gonna go with it. He starts the post with saying, "My ex reported me for gear to the police on my school campus. Luckily for me, they didn't seem to care at all. My meeting with the school lasted a full 7 minutes, in which I explained to them that all the talk about my cycle on TikTok was purely satire, and how my friends and I make jokes that I'm on gear is only because I'm stronger than them. I said I think it will be obvious if I'm on steroids, and the lady interviewing me looked at me like I was stupid. When my ex reported me to the school, we had been broken up for 2 months and I never ran anything while I was with her. She was just being petty. LMFAO. Now to the cycle." Now, before I get into this, just to be very clear, don't do this at home. This is actually, in my opinion, a very bad cycle, and I don't even recommend using steroids. All right, YouTube?
This is entirely for educational and entertainment purposes only.
So he has a total of 8 weeks listed, in which he starts with D-ball. Now, we got to explain D-ball again. For those of you who are new here and you haven't heard of D-ball, it's very worth listening to, especially if you're going to be going down this path. D-ball is wildly volatile for many different reasons. One, it's a 17-alkylated steroid. It's an oral steroid, which causes hepatotoxicity or hepatostress, hepatic taxation, basically. Because it has to go through first pass in the liver to be metabolized, you end up with a lot of potential damage done to the liver. And things like hepatosteatosis is not that uncommon when abusing oral steroids. On top of that complexity, you have a matter where you aromatize certain androgens. There's this enzyme called aromatase, and it converts normally testosterone into estradiol, or E2. And estradiol binds to the estrogen receptor and initiates some sort of estrogenic effect. Some of those are actually positive in terms of their physicality, but others are not, like gyno development. You know, guys growing female breast tissue, or developing emotional irregularity, or eliminating their capacity to get an erect penis. That is a very real thing. But, you know, estrogen relatively can be quite easily managed, especially when it's derived from testosterone, as it is naturally. However, when you use D-ball, you get methyl estradiol, which is far more potent and scary than estrogen, and is much more pesky to metabolize. And so you end up with a lot of issues in your body. And this is mainly gynecomastia, water retention due to the activation of the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, and a whole swath of side effects that are just never going to be a good idea. It is, again, one of the most archaic compounds that you can use, and there's so many better and more refined compounds. For this case, if he was to have started with Anavar, we would be having a much different conversation, and he would have likely have had a probably better net result without the physiological damage, while still being able to take an oral. However, I still think orals, if you are going to do steroids, is a terrible starting point, because it's easy, sure, but there's a sort of cost to doing oral steroids that you don't have to pay when you do injectable steroids, like the first pass through the liver, for instance. And on top of that, he's taking RAD 140. It's a selective androgen receptor modulator, touted to be better than testosterone. It's definitely not. It was an experimental compound. It was not approved for human use because of its potential to cause liver damage, being probably the most potent out of any androgenic-based compound, as well as having just a wildly horrific array of effects that are just non-effective when compared to something that is very equivalent, like, I don't know, testosterone administration itself. Just was not the compound that it was meant out to be. But anyways, he's taking D-ball only for 3 weeks, and RAD 140 at 7.5 milligrams, very low, probably not even efficacious dose dose in this case. And then at week 4, he put in D-bol, anadrol, rad 140, and testosterone. Week 5, he went from 250 tests to 500 tests, still using all of the above orals. Then he maintained the 500 test and D-bol for 3 more weeks for a total of 8 weeks. Now already this is a horrible cycle because testosterone at that dose, you tend not to be able to know what's going to happen or how you respond. Estrogenic side effects may vary per person. I mean, honestly, the aromatase expression in you is far different from the person to the left or right of you. And so equivalent dose of testosterone for one guy might be completely fine, while for the next guy, it could be absolutely devastating because he converts a ton of estrogen. I generally think that starting at 200-ish milligrams is probably the best route anybody could ever take if they had to use these things, which I still think that most people don't even need to use them. They just want to look better. And to look better, you probably need to lose a little bit of fat and build a little bit of muscle, which can be done naturally most of the time, 9 times out of 10. But going from 250 tests on the week 4 to 500 tests, also senseless. The testosterone itself will tend to titrate itself perfectly in a cycle, especially if you're using an enanthate ester. So you don't have to worry about like manually titrating the dose. If you're going to end up at 500 milligrams non-negotiably, just start there and the cycle itself will take care of itself. This way you just kind of prolong the potential side effects from having instability of serum testosterone levels, and that instability in those levels is what causes most of your side effects. But anyways, we digress. Let's continue through his personal anecdotes. He says, I chose D-bol simply for the fact that I knew it would put on size and strength really fast. Again, let me just stop there. This is a huge misconception within the intro to bodybuilding world where people start taking steroids. D-bol doesn't put on size and strength real fast.
You, just you, building your app on base 44. Describe it.
It puts on a water retention, and through excess water retention, sometimes they're able to lift more. But using any other steroid, which I would much rather see somebody use for their health and longevity, if you had to use steroids again, in this case, if you were like pinned against the wall, because again, health and longevity, like you could take so many different compounds. The reason that people associate it with size and strength.
Alright, y'all, Montana 300 broke the oath, and most people don't know why. Montana 300 got his start when he first uploaded his videos on the MySpace. He would gain notoriety from the swag and surf freestyle that got him booked for his first few shows. Some people would say that Montana 300 came before drill rap. He would then begin to take rap more serious and start his own record label, FGE, Fly Guy Entertainment. On this label, Montana 300 would release his own mixtapes that got him notoriety in the street. He would then release his first debut mixtape, Curse with a Blessing. After gaining the name in Chicago, Montana 300 would audition for the TV show Empire. In an old interview, Montana 300 would explain how Chris Rock brought him into the industry, which led him to get a record deal.
Chris Rock, like, me and him talk more than anybody on the show, you know. I was like, yeah, you know, I get $10,000 a show, $5,000 a feature. He's like, yeah, you know, that's good and all, but it's not really shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I'm thinking like, yeah, they to Chris Rock, you know what I'm saying? But he like, I don't really see no money off HBO. You know, he said, but I get 100% of my tour money. He said, 100% of my, he's like, you know how much that is, you know? And he told me, like, he said, eventually you're gonna have to sign. I'm like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. He's like, yes, you is. I said, no, I'm not. He's like, okay, look, you're never gonna be able to do for yourself what a multi-million dollar media can do for you, you know? And then I was like, yeah, I agree with that, you know? But to me, there's nothing like your freedom, you know? In the middle of talking, what's your name? What's your name? I said, Montana 300. So he's doing like this with his phone. So I'm thinking he's finna go to YouTube. We talking a little bit more. He said, I got Rick Rubin on the line. This is how he said. I said, oh, okay. So he's talking to me a little more. I go off, I'm talking to somebody else. I come back maybe like 15 minutes later. We talking, he said, yeah, I checked out some of your shit, man. It's nice. I said, what'd you check out? He said, ice cream truck. I said, I got way better than that. You know, he's like, no, it's just nice. It's a catchy song. You know, I think it's radio ready and all, you know. And then, so we get on the set. We on there for probably like 7 hours. So we get a break, go to our phones. And then he goes up to me, he said, Rick Rubin says he likes you. You know, so I'm like, so then he put his phone right in front of my face like this, and then he told Rick Rubin to check me out. And Rick Rubin did some homework, and then he's like, yeah, man, I like him a whole lot, you know. And he was like, I'm gonna give you guys each other numbers before we get out of here, or whatever. He said, you definitely need to go to LA and, you know, for Rick Rubin, you know. I never heard from Chris Rock after I gave him my number, but he still did what he said he was gonna do, and, you know, had Rick Rubin reach out to me, you know.
Shortly after, Montana 300 would release his debut album, Fire in the Church. This album would peak number 95 on Billboard's Top 200. Montana 300 was on his way, but shortly after being in the industry, he would see the dark side. In an interview with DJ Small Eyes, he would talk about how the industry was full of freaky stuff. Now he broke the oath.
What do you hate the most about the music industry?
I say hate is a strong word, but it's not. It's like one thing that kind of irks me to get on my nerves is that it's always some type of homosexuality popping up, you know, with a lot of these rappers. You know what I'm saying? Like some people come out one day and be like, "Oh man, he's spitting the realest shit." You know what I'm saying? He spitting some real life shit. You know, this shit got some substance. Then later on they get a certain amount of money and it's just like, you know, some suspect ass shit just start happening, or, you know, come out of nowhere, and, you know, some people are like, oh, it's Illuminati, or I wonder if it's this, or this record label made them do that, and I don't know everybody's business, you know what I'm saying, but I know from, you could talk to a man and I have a conversation on nothing about him seem questionable, you see what I'm saying? Then one day you just see him on the internet, you know, and he dressed a certain type of way or doing some type of dance, and just looks so demonic or possessed, you know what I'm saying, or some type of shit, or like somebody else has really controlled him or told him to do that, because this is not the same person that I met and had a conversation with, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know the story behind all that type of shit, but that type of shit to me, it could kind of irk me or get on my nerves, and I know it might be some people out there that it's really not them, you know what I'm saying, and somebody else really did make them do that, you see what I'm saying? And I could kind of, and if that's the case, then I kind of feel sorry for those type of motherfuckers, you know? And I'm pretty sure it's not what they originally signed up to do, you know what I'm saying, or plan on doing, you see what I'm saying? And one reason why I love about being independent and staying to myself is because they say the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, you know? And when you go signing with some other motherfuckers and smoke and dealing with some other people, that's that devil you don't know. You know your own demons, you know yourself, you know what you need to work on. You know what I'm saying, as far as making yourself a better person and the temptations that you deal with every day from a day-to-day basis, you know, but when you dealing with other people, especially the people that got more money or control over your money and your actions and what you do and your music, it could be, your dreams of getting a deal can actually be a nightmare, you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of the only thing that kind of like gets on my nerves and stuff sometimes when I see it and shit.
Introducing Grammarly, like you've never seen before. Your all-in-one writing essential.
After the industry caught wind of this interview, Montana 300 will be blackballed. He will go on interview press runs discussing the inner dealings of the music business.
You mentioned earlier that you feel like you were being blackballed in the industry.
Yeah.
Explain that.
I basically met with every major label, and I kind of sit there kind of like I do now. And even when I was with Kanye, I think I went out the room, my manager was like, hey, you think he feeling my shit? Like my shit I'm playing for him? And he like, yeah, you know, and I kind of just, you know, I sit because I watch and I observe, and I try to seek through and read a lot of bullshit. You know, a lot of people, the thing in life and with people is this, like, nobody gets rewards for telling the truth. And if people did, a lot more people would tell the truth. But people get rewards for lying. The record labels lie to artists all the fucking time just to get their ass to sign on that dotted line. Now I got them. Now I can do it. Like, so it's rewards from lies. That's why way more people lie than tell the truth. The truth fucking hurts. The truth is painful. So everybody in life is dealing with something, fighting and dealing with something. So we can all come around each other and smile and do a video shoot like nothing is wrong or nothing is happening in our personal lives, but that's not the truth. All they know is the sauce. Let them know the cost. And when I say that, I don't mean the price, money-wise. I'm talking about let them know the cost. What did it fucking cost you to get these cars and these racks? It cost you to sign it cost you your fucking freedom. It cost you to sign your rights over. You can't go spend time with your kids like you want to because they running you left and right like crazy. They got you on a mission running, trying to get yourself out of debt for the next 5, 10, 15 years of your life, if you can even get out of it. And when they feel like they gave up on you, they sit your ass on the shelf. Like, now you don't have a chance of getting out of that contract. Now you saying, F this label, they don't do shit for their artists, blah, 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 when all the reality is they done found somebody new and they putting their time and their money behind him. They sitting your ass on the shelf and you owe them now. Go work at McDonald's, they getting part of that check. Say you're gonna stop working for they record label and you're gonna stop rapping and you wanna go work at McDonald's, or you wanna go over and get into the movie industry. They getting part of that check because they got that signature out your ass.
After Montana 300 exposed the industry, would have to pay the price. In February of 2025, Montana 300 will be arrested on multiple charges. I guess the industry don't play fair. Let me know what y'all think. Did Montana 300 break the oath, or did he just get a bad deal? Leave your comments below.
Strength is because it does cause a massive amount of water retention, and it's not necessarily a good thing to have that happen. You have pulmonary hypertension and all sorts of issues that develop because of this, cardiac remodeling, and so much more. He goes on to say, however, I hate being skinny. I wanted the combo of aesthetics and strength, and D-Ball gave me the size that I needed to get there. Within 3 days on D-Ball, my squat jumped 50 pounds. Each time I squatted, I increased the weight by either 10 or 15 pounds, while always hitting good depth. The first 4 weeks I ran D-Ball without test, I was getting by, but I wasn't very smart. I felt very lethargic all day long. I was waking up late and skipping classes. I would take naps midday, and then also sometimes take a nap at 7 or 8 p.m. before going to bed at 11 p.m., if not earlier. My grades were starting to slip, but they were already pretty good, so I had some wiggle room. I started 25 milligrams and then eventually went up to 50 milligrams and saw a notable difference. I had absolutely no estrogenic issues, no gyno, no acne, nothing at all. I naturally have a bunch of back knee, but for some reason it cleared up a lot once I started my cycle, probably because I was drinking a stupid amount of water. He says that, skipping ahead, he says that D-Ball gave him confidence and made me more happy and cheerful by 5 times. D-Ball and test together was absolutely amazing for me mentally. It was actually insane to me how good I felt using those two compounds together. So I'll say this, while he had decent side effects or a side effect profile on this cycle, that's not going to be for everyone. And this is where using gear can get so tumultuous for people. We just covered a story not too long ago, probably in like the last video at this point, where the guy had blown up with acne development and so much more, gynecomastia, from using things like D-Ball. The response is highly inter-individual and it depends on your milieu genetically, and you can't depend on somebody's testimonial like this giving you any sort of valid information on how to use testosterone. This individual was very lucky, genuinely a very lucky individual, that he didn't have life-altering side effects. Gynecomastia is a life-altering side effect. Acne development, especially cystic acne, is a life-altering side effect because you develop scarring of your skin and ruin the quality of your skin, something in which we'll talk about when we're looking at his before and afters. Then he got testosterone. He mentioned that it did feel amazing. Test made him a little bit more confident, a little bit more horny. It gave me the drive I needed to get my grades back up and stop slacking in school. I should have had it in my cycle to begin with, but better late than never. Yeah, I agree with him here. You should never really try to run an oral steroid independently. For one, the androgens are not akin to testosterone, and that's so important to understand. Synthetic androgens are not testosterone, and their metabolites are not that of testosterone. Our body, biologically speaking, is meant to run from testosterone, and its metabolites, like dihydrotestosterone, estrogen, and so on, are specifically there for a reason, right? And so when you remove those backlogged hormones or those end fates of testosterone by just putting in a synthetic steroid without those end fates, you run a ton of issues. Like, you will run into massive issues and feel like garbage most of the time. But a lot of people will use oral only steroid cycles, which are wildly side effect ridden, because it's easier than injecting testosterone. It's less invasive per se. Then he tried Anadrol. He says he regrets not taking Anadrol higher, but he was hoping that it would increase strength. I understand I only ran it for 2 weeks, but I should have noticed more strength even at a short time. It's probably just because I didn't run it high enough. However, I did get some good aggression from Anadrol. I became kind of aggressively playful to a point where I'd wrestle my friends in the gym, dining hall, and library. Not like a fight, just playful wrestling between dudes.
Gay!
So maybe Anadrol turned him a little sus boy, just a little sussy-wussy.
Who says I'm gay? You are gay.
I can describe it as being playful, like wrestling with your dog. You can wrestle and get rough with your dog. He'll show you teeth, maybe growl or bark or snarl, but at the end of the day, he's not really mad at you. I don't know what the fuck this guy's talking about, bro. He says after all, he put on about 30 pounds. The report that he did, which was a body scan, said that he had gained 7 pounds of muscle. He took a total of about 5 rest days for the entire 8 weeks, and the fact that he had ran such low doses of these compounds makes me even happier. One girl told me she brought me up by name with her friends and went, "Oh, the guy on steroids?" and I asked why they thought that, and she said it was obvious. She said I don't look natural anymore, and me being so conceited, I made her repeat that sentence 3 times. I'll be cruising on test again until I order the rest of my Tren E for the next cycle. D-ball is severely underrated, and it's sad how not common it is to use anymore. It works. His second cycle is going to be Tren, guys. That's just shows you where this delusion is taking the guy. So here's his results. You know, they're pretty good. The guy looks jacked. I mean, he's definitely jacked, but one thing I want you to consider here is he's 20 years old and he has nasal folds like a 40-year-old man. His skin texture is absolutely woefully destroyed. He's 20 years old and he looks older than most 30-year-old men. This cycle is disastrous, right? You realistically could have taken everything out and just given a guy 200 milligrams of testosterone and he would have progressed exceptionally well. Give it time. You don't need to rush through things, and I don't understand why the intention is always to rush and to use as much as possible to obtain the maximal amount of results, whatever those are. Because oftentimes the greater that you turn up the amplitude of dose, yeah, maybe you get better results. More drugs tend to work better, but they
Why are you still suffering to hit your protein goals? Factor makes hitting your protein goals easy and actually delicious.
Hollywood is incredibly scared of him and all the other streamers. They have so much power.
You think streamers can sell their soul?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, you think, like, there's, like, blood rituals and shit?
Yeah, bro.
No, bro.
You don't think so?
No.
Tell me Kai Cenat did not do a blood ritual.
I don't know. In the streaming, it's, like, rappers are different.
But I feel like if you did one, you wouldn't tell me.
Brother, if I did it, I'd stream it.
And I started seeing a couple different people talking about it, and I was like, you know what? This makes a lot of sense. Y'all know the streamer Neon, right? He was also in the video I did about Skrilla, when Skrilla told him to put the mask on, and then when he put the mask on, Skrilla was joking, supposedly, allegedly, and he was like, ha ha ha, I got your soul. Like when Neon put the mask on, Skrilla was like, I got your soul, right? So that's Neon. Neon recently did a stream with Kevin Gates, but he also, I think in the middle of last month, the title was like Billionaire Exposes Hollywood and Streaming, right? I don't know if the guy was a billionaire or not, but he was basically telling Neon that Hollywood doesn't like you guys and they're trying to push y'all out because y'all are taking the spotlight, so to speak. Remember, we talked about this a little bit when I had that clip from that Mike Epps video and how about, you know, it's very easy to become famous off the internet, streaming, you know, YouTube, you know, on a really big level. But it's a little bit deeper because Hollywood is looking at it as y'all are stealing watch time from us. You're stealing the attention of young kids away from our actresses, our actors, our artists. You know what I'm saying? Because millions upon millions of hours of watch time is being dedicated to streaming now.